Have you ever needed to put together a frame for a photo, for a shadow box or something? Sometimes they can be real tricky to glue. If you try using a bunch of these clamps, they want to slide back and forth the pieces. I made this jig over 20 years ago and it works really well, very easy to put together and cheap, which always works for me. At that time, there were very few options as far as jigs. Now you can buy all kinds of things. But I thought I'd show you this in case you want to build your own. I really like to make things. Now, you can make it any size you want. As you can see, I have a square frame of Wenge in here. But if you want to make it rectangular, you can do that. All you have to do is change the length of these 1/4 inch rods that are in here. So if you want to make something 8 feet long, you can do that. Now, if you decide to make something really large, I suggest you don't go with 1/4 inch because the rods will tend to whip and bow on you and maybe not be as strong as you would like. But for smaller frames, I've done 2 feet quite easily. 1/4 inch works really well. So I'm going to take this apart, show you the components, how it's put together, see if it interests you. Be right back. Let me just take this apart. This is a pretty simple system that I came up with, and since then I have seen a few others like this, so someone else had the same idea. Anyway, originally I had just 2 pieces of oak that I had glued together. I made sure that this edge was jointed straight on both of them. I made sure this one was cut at 90 degrees so that when I put 2 pieces in here, they'll be held perfectly at 90 degrees. I also drilled a hole in here so that when these are in here, if they're not lined up perfectly, they have a little space. If there is no space in there, one of these ends could get crushed, all the fibers bent and dented. We don't want that. All I do is drill a hole on one end and I put in one of these 1/4 20 inserts. You can just screw those into the hole and then it's threaded on the inside for the 1/4 20 rod. And you can get 2 types. This one that goes right into the hole if you want it in further, or this one with a flange so that it will sit on the outside and not go in further than you want it to. Both of them are working for me just fine. Now when I started doing this, I was putting the rod through and just using a washer and a nut. And that was fine. Then I discovered these pentagon knobs and I realized that when I put this through, there was no space. It wouldn't spin there because it was hitting there on the surface. So I just put 3/4 of an inch of plywood underneath and now it works just fine. When I first put it together, I had a couple of 3/8 inch bolts coming through, carriage bolts, so they could be sunk, countersunk in there with the nut washer and lock washer on this side, just to hold them tight together. And after the glue dried, and I wanted to use the pentagon knob here, one was in the way, I got rid of it, but I've never seen any problem with just leaving this one here. So it's still there today, although it's all glued together. One thing I have done, which is likely not necessary, is to number each of these to make sure that I've always got the same sides facing each other. So I'm always going across number 3 here, number 2, number 1, number 4. I like to keep them in the same orientation all the time. And now when I'm ready to use it, I just put my pieces in here and start to tighten things up. And I can push them together first, trying not to overdo it. And start spinning these pentagon knobs in here until I get them evenly tightened all the way around. And there it is, put together. Fairly simple, but 2 things I want to mention. First of all, I should have shown this with this knot in here, but underneath in the corners, I like to put a real liberal coating of wax so that if any glue squeezes out of here, which it's going to do, it does not end up sticking this down to the jig. So I use a lot of it. I used to put waxed paper in there, but I found that because you can't really see what's going on, occasionally the waxed paper would bunch up and get into the joint, and then you got a real mess and have to start over. Second thing, it does not matter how perfectly you engineer and build these pieces. They can be absolutely perfect, 90 degrees, everything else working well, and it won't matter if these corners are not cut to precisely 45 degrees. And I don't mean 44.5 or 45.2. They have to be 45 degrees if you want these to line up and give you perfectly square corners. All right, that's just a quick explanation of a fairly simple project. I hope it'll help somebody out there. I know a lot of people buy theirs, but this is very easy to make your own, and I hope you'll give it a shot. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you'll come back again next time. Between now and then, have a great day in your shop and be safe. If you like this, pass it on to someone else. Share it with your friends. Click the like button so I know I'm doing something right. And I'll see you next time. Take care.